رمضان كريم كريم كريم، شهر عظيم عظيم عظيم. قم للعبادة تلقى السعادة، قم للعبادة تلقى السعادة، تلقى السعادة تلقى النعيم. رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات، رمضان زمان البركات، رمضان زمان الحسنات، رمضان مجال الصلوات، طوبى للنفس بتقواها. رمضان كريم كريم كريم، شهر عظيم عظيم عظيم. رمضان كريم كريم كريم، شهر عظيم عظيم عظيم. قم للعبادة تلقى السعادة، قم للعبادة تلقى السعادة، تلقى السعادة تلقى النعيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الكريم. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome once again to Islam the Natural Way, a special series of Ramadan TV programs prepared and produced by the Guyana Islamic Trust. In today's program, Brother Sayyad Baksh, a student of the Guyana Islamic Institute, will speak to us on the rights of Rasulullah. This morning's recitation of Al-Quran is done by Brother Jamir Muhammad, who is also a student of the GII.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أرسلناك شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا لتؤمنوا بالله ورسوله وتعزروه وتوقروه وتسبحوه بكرة وأصيلا. إن الذين يبايعونك إنما يبايعون الله يد الله فوق أيديهم فمن نكث فإنما ينكث على نفسه ومن أوفى بما عاهد عليه الله فسيؤتيه أجرا عظيما. صدق الله العظيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To my non-Muslim viewers, to my non-Muslim guests, may the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with you. To enter the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to enter the religion of Islam, you make two declarations, you make two testimonies. First of all, you testify, you declare that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone deserves worship. There is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alone without partners. And your second declaration or your second testimony is to declare and testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his last messenger, his last slave and messenger. My beloved brothers and sisters, I'd like to emphasize on this last point, this last testimony. The last testimony is to declare that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's last slave and messenger. This testimony or these declarations, they have three parts, three requirements, three requisites. First of all, that you affirm that the message that he sallallahu alayhi wasallam brought was from Allah, simply because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not choose a liar to bear his message and lie about the message. As such, whatever the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam brought, we must accept it as the absolute truth from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second requisite or the second requirement is that once you affirm that this message is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it becomes obligatory that you obey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the second commandment or the second obligation is that you obey the commands of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Your third requirement or your third requisite is to try to embody, copy, imitate and follow the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But my dear brothers and sisters, listen attentively. How can you imitate or how can you copy, how can you follow that which you do not love? And how can you love something that which you do not know? To summarize, this declaration has three requirements. It has three requisites. To believe that the message the Prophet ﷺ came with was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it was the absolute truth. The second requisite or the second requirement is that you must obey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the commandments, you must obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And your third requisite is to imitate, embody, copy and follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are also just a few rights that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam have upon us, which we'll explore this morning and more, inshallah. The first right that we will explore this morning is to believe in the prophethood of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Believe the prophethood of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allah's message to him, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَالنُّورِ الَّذِي أَنزَلْنَا. Believe therefore in Allah and His Messenger and the light in which we have sent them. And as was narrated in the books of Hadith by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I have been ordered to fight mankind until they testify that there is no God but Allah and until they believe in me and that which I was sent with. Secondly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated every believing man and every believing woman proper manners with respect to His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this was explicitly stated in Allah's speech. In the following verse, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasulih. O you who believe, make not a decision in advance before Allah and His Messenger. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawti an-nabiyyi wa la tajharu lahu bil qawli ka jahri ba'dikum li ba'din an tahbata a'malukum wa antum la tash'urun. O you who believe, raise not your voices above the voice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor speak aloud to him as you speak to others, lest your deeds may be rendered fruitless while you perceive it not. إن الذين يغضون أصواتهم عند رسول الله أولئك الذين امتحن الله قلوبهم للتقوى لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم. Verily, those who lower their voices in the presence of Allah's Messenger, though they are the ones whose heart Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested for piety. For them is forgiveness and a great reward. Thirdly, we must obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Believing in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the message he sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought is not merely enough. We must also obey His commands as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His kitab. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u ar-rasul. O believers, obey Allah and obey the messenger. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, Man yuti'u ar-rasula faqad ata'a Allah. He who obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. And it was narrated in hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, all of my nation will enter paradise except those who refuse. The companions asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, O Messenger of Allah, who will refuse? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever obeys me will enter paradise, and whoever disobeys me, indeed they have refused. Fourthly, we must emulate the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Indeed, yours is indeed a tremendous character. If Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the most great says that indeed Muhammad's sallallahu alaihi wasallam character is tremendous. Why do we go out of our way to imitate the character and the ways of influencers and kafirs today, instead of going out of our ways to imitate and copy the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even after attaining revelation that goes against the Arabs, that contradicted their beliefs, their customs, he was still known as Al-Amin among them, the trustworthy. The Prophet ﷺ had a simple lifestyle. He was merciful to elders. He was merciful to women and children. He ﷺ was forgiving and compassionate. He ﷺ was generous and brave. There are so many great qualities of the Prophet ﷺ that we as believers should and actually we must try to imitate and put into our life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Say, if you love Allah, then follow me. And elsewhere, He the Most High tells us, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have in the Messenger of Allah a beautiful example. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, whoever turns away from my sunnah is not of me. Undoubtedly, within the overall obligation in emulating him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are certain matters where we must practice what the Prophet did. These matters are obligatory. And there are some where it is highly encouraged or it is highly recommended, but not obligatory. However, as believers, we should try our utmost best to follow the prophetic example and not the examples of influencers and kafirs. We should try to mold our lives like the life of the Prophet ﷺ in his light, in the example that he left, as far as possible. For it is in him that we see the beauty and the perfection of behavior. Fifthly, we must love the Prophet ﷺ. The love of the Prophet ﷺ is a requirement of faith. Anas ibn Malik narrates that the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من ولده ووالده والناس أجمعين. None of you truly believes until he loves me more than his father, his children, and the whole of mankind. Close your eyes for a second and forget everything. Think about it. Do you love the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than your family, more than your wealth, more than your worldly possessions? Love the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam like the ashab love the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they love the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the dunya and the akhirah if you love the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ahabba sunnati faqad ahabbani, wa man ahabbani kana ma'i fil jannah." Whoever loves my sunnah, verily he loves me, and whoever loves me will be with me in Jannah. Once there was a time when the Prophet and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu were in a cave. They were in a cave. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed his glorious head on the knees of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and he started to rest his eyes. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu sat there still, covering the two holes of the cave. After some time had passed, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu felt a sting on one of his feet. Despite cringing with pain, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu did not move as to not to disturb his beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What great love the companions had for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the love we should try to build for our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But my beloved gathering, my beloved audience, you must understand that people love for 5 main reasons. Firstly, they love everything that is beautiful. Anything that is beautiful is adored. A beautiful car is adored. A beautiful person or a beautiful building or anything that is beautiful is adored by people. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was beautiful. Jabir ibn Samurah reported that one night he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on a clear night while the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was wearing a red cloak. He turned his sight between the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the moon, and to him The Prophet ﷺ was more beautiful and more handsome than the moon. Secondly, for its merits, for its conduct, what it actually has to offer. Because someone could be extremely beautiful with the worst attitude possible. That kind of person, no one will want to have an interaction with. So we can be beautiful, yes, people love us, but we must also have great adab, we must have good conduct. Thirdly, for its benefit. Say a person may not be the best looking, he may not have the best attitude, but he is helpful. He or she may be helpful. Say you are sick, he is there to tend to you. Say you need your rent pays, he is there for you, he is there to pay it. You watch this person and you say, MashaAllah, and eventually you start liking this person. Fourthly, is someone who isn't necessarily doing something for you right now, but you expect something from them in the future. And subhanallah, we have such high hopes in the Prophet ﷺ. On the day of judgment, when we'll be awaiting judgment, and we'll wait for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to start the day of judgment, people will go to the past people of high status. They will go to the past prophets, and they will go to them and ask them, intercede with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the day of judgment to start. They will go to Adam, they will go to Nuh, they will go to Ibrahim, they will go to Musa, they will go to all these prophets, and all of them will excuse themselves until they go to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he sallallahu alayhi wasallam will say, I am for this. And he will intercede for the day of judgment to begin. Also on that day, when every nation will walk behind their Imam, we as the Ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we will walk behind the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam as he being our Imam. We have such high hopes we have so much to expect of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the hereafter. Lastly, you love someone because of the relationship you share with them. Your father, for example, he may not be the best looking, he may not have the best qualities, you might think can't expect something, but because of that connection of fatherhood, of parenthood, you love him. Similarly, we share a connection with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hereafter. يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ. On that day, every person will flee from their own siblings, and even their mother and their father, and even their spouse and children. But you will run to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he will say, I am for this, and I am for this. Do you understand now that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he fulfills each of the rights each of the reasons why people love. And this is the reason, my beloved audience, we should love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The next right that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam have upon us is that we must honor him and revere him. True faith or true iman not only demands that we love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but that he must also be honored and revered. Allah the Most High said, those who believe in him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, honor him, support him, and follow the light that was sent down with him. Those are the successful. And he subhanahu wa ta'ala said that you may honor him and revere him. Imam al-Qazwini stated, he contrasted honor, veneration, and reverence with that of love. And he cites Imam al-Bayhaqi, who stated, this is a higher degree than that of love. For not all that love revere. A father love his child, and a master his servant. But that does not mean that they revere him or her. But whereas all who revere also love. Or the next right that the Prophet ﷺ have is that we must believe that prophethood ended with him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Almighty said, مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمًا. Muhammad is not the father of any man among you, but he is a messenger of Allah and the seal of the prophets, and Allah has knowledge of all things. Needless to say, when something is sealed, you cannot add from it and you cannot take from it. It is complete. when a container is sealed, you cannot add to that container. Until you open that container, you could take out from that container or add to that container. But if it's sealed, there's no way you could add something. Similarly, abstracting this, we see that the Prophet ﷺ is a seal to prophethood, meaning that there is no prophet after him. Henceforth, any revealed truth shall be revised and reanimated by scholars, reformers, and renewers, but never again by prophets. Our Prophet ﷺ is Khatan Nabiyyin, the seal of the prophets. And this was confirmed in many hadith, one of which said, there will arise among my nation 30 liars, all of them claiming to be a prophet. But I am the final prophet. There will be no prophet after me. Additionally, we must send blessings, salat, and salutations of peace, salam, upon him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When telling us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His angels are constantly raising the rank of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, status and honor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتُهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. Allah and His angels send blessings upon the Prophet. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, send blessings upon him and salute him with a worthy salutation. The Prophet ﷺ stated in a hadith, whoever invokes one blessing upon me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invokes 10 blessings upon him. He ﷺ also said, those closest to me on the day of resurrection are those who invoke the most blessings upon me. And he ﷺ stated in another hadith, the one who is miser, or the miser is he who, when my name is mentioned in his presence, he does not send salams, or he does not send blessings upon me. As for what it means for Allah to bless or send salat on the Prophet, a famous tabi'i explained, Allah's salat is him extolling him sallallahu alayhi wasallam to the angels. The angels' salat is their supplication for him. The ijma' view seems to be the one Imam al-Tirmidhi records. It is related from Sufyan al-Thawri and others from the people of knowledge. The salat of Allah is His mercy, and salat of the angels is their seeking forgiveness for him. Hence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam by the constant effusion of mercy descending upon him. Such divine mercy referring to light, knowledge, revelation, support, protection, swift response to prayers, exalting in rank and nearness to him, honorable mention of him, and as well as other things only Allah and His beloved know. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The angels bless the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam by praying for him and supporting him. The believers by invoking Allah's blessings upon him. As for salutations or salam, it is praying for protection, safety, and peace upon him. To conclude, the Prophet ﷺ has many rights upon us, some of which I discussed, some there are more which I did not discuss. And we as his ummah, we should try to fulfill these rights. We should try to practice these rights, and we should try to implement these in our daily life. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the understanding of what was said. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends salam and salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when his sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's name is mentioned. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Ramadan a fruitful one for the entirety of the ummah. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant strength, ease and patience to the entirety of the ummah around the world. I pray for the freedom of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive and shower His mercy on this ummah. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reunite us all behind our Imam Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on the day of judgment and grant us all Jannah. Ameen. Jazakallahu khaira. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Until tomorrow, may the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لا يسأم الإنسان من دعاء الخير وإن مسه الشر فيئوس قنوط ولئن أذقناه رحمة منا من بعد ضراء مسته ليقولن هذا لي وما أظن الساعة قائمة ولئن رجعت إلى ربي إن لي عنده للحسنى فلننبئن الذين كفروا بما عملوا ولنذيقنهم من عذاب غليظ. وإذا أنعمنا على الإنسان أعرض ونأى بجانبه وإذا مسه الشر فذو دعاء عريض. قل أرأيتم إن كان من عند الله ثم كفرتم به من أضل ممن هو في شقاق بعيد. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق. أولم يكف بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد. ألا إنهم في مرية من لقاء ربهم ألا إنه بكل شيء محيط.
رمضان صيام ودعاء رمضان أمان وصفاء رمضان صيام ودعاء رمضان أمان وصفاء رمضان سلوك وعطاء أهلا بقدومك يا رمضان.
رمضان كريم 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 شهر عظيم عظيم عظيم. رمضان كريم 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 شهر عظيم عظيم عظيم. قم للعبادة تلقى السعادة قم للعبادة تلقى السعادة تلقى السعادة